I know it's been said before, but we're really in the age of anime where we aren't talking about the big three anymore. Nah, instead, we're so focused on what I'd like to call the little three. Because in the span of a year, we got these 3 anime with 3 little kids that are going through some shit. We already talked about one of them so far being Kotaro, and someday, maybe eventually, we'll get down to talking about Anya as well. But today, we have to focus on the main man himself, King Boji. Ranking of Kings was an anime that I wasn't paying much thought to. Like, yeah, it seemed fine from the outside with an interesting art style and the character design, of course. But when people told me that this anime was possibly one of the best anime of the year, I called that shit cap. I mean, the main character is just some kid who could barely lift a sword. How good could an anime about a weak-ass prince possibly be? Well, to my surprise, it's incredibly good as a matter of fact. Ranking of Kings may have seemed like a weaker anime to me at first, but after the first few episodes, the floodgates opened with so much character development and story. I thought I'd be sick of the OP anime protagonist trope by now, but the way that King Boji uses his power feels so refreshing. Like, yeah, Deku gaining the power of One for All is cool, and Asta getting devil abilities is also cool. But when a character like Boji uses something else that seems that much more believable, I tend to love that shit. Like, yeah, I'm sure Boji has even more hidden away than what we've seen so far, but just giving my man something simple works well too. I don't know if that's just me, but going from stuff like Titan shifting to flame manipulation and then something as simple as hitting the sweet spot is kinda relieving. His sidekick Kage isn't much more than a slithering, talking inventory space that has no combat ability himself. Unless you'd call the power of inspiration an ability, then he's got plenty of that. Outside of Boji and his wingman, this anime is filled with side stories that continue to entertain throughout. When I tell you that you will both love and hate almost all of these characters at one point or another, I mean that. And that's anywhere from his obnoxious younger brother Daida to even his stepmother who... Hold up. Y'all said stepmom? Yeah, I get it, her nose would even give Pearl a run for her money, but that art I saw on Twitter had your boy thinking about being Daida's new daddy, if you know what I mean. But every character has their own motives in mind, even outside of the best interests of their own kingdoms and factions. For example, characters like Domus. And no, I won't spoil his plotline, but he went through quite a few redemptions, which is saying a lot. He's the one character that changes the most throughout the season to the point where I can't even tell how I feel about him even now. But regardless, all of these characters will have development with some that you wouldn't even imagine. It's that attention to detail that stood out to me the most as I watched this. All of these characters get their own bit of development in a way that would make a regular shonen fan's head spin. Yes, I'm looking at you Boruto stans with your filler being longer than the canon. I didn't expect to have such a fulfilling story in just 23 episodes. And that's with so many of the plots connecting and intertwining with one another so smoothly. Even the most vile villains have a chance at a redemption arc. And I get that some people may be tired of the tragic antagonist trope, but fleshing out these characters just adds layers to an already great plot. It's the kind of well-written story that makes you feel something about each character, whether they be major or minor, which again is something a lot of other shonen anime could learn from. I'm sure we can all name some anime that give less character development in 200 episodes than Ranking of Kings gives in only 23. The plot aside though, the action is another way that this anime really shines, both in how some of these fights play out and also in how they're animated. Later into the anime, there's a certain enemy that really takes the spotlight for a lot of the longer fights. Seeing how everyone fights this enemy is so interesting, and it gives these characters a way to test the abilities that they've been mastering throughout the entire show. And one thing I like is that even though this is a medieval setting for an anime, it doesn't come off as being too Knights of the Round Table, if you know what I mean. I'm not usually into anything that goes too hard on the knights in shining armor and stuff in that era, but the variety of weapons, magic, and fighting styles that these characters have makes it feel like it's never just a simple sword fight. One of my favorite characters, Dorsha, has his own fights that definitely aren't what I expected to see here. This man said, fuck them swords, y'all can catch these hands, and I'm here for it. What helps even more is the fight choreography and again the animation that makes these fights feel more in depth. There's one fight at the end of this season that stands out really well for this and uses the scale of this battle to make it feel like a true final boss, when they could have instead taken a completely different route and given us a more simple fight. It's this attention to detail that makes Ranking of Kings shine all the way until the very end. It may set up a lot of characters and stories in a short amount of time, but it handles its pacing well, so every episode is a great experience. It's not bogged down with too much extra plot that leads nowhere, and it doesn't have these overly complex power systems either, but it does have a focus on these characters, the world itself, and the plot structure it wants to build over these 23 episodes. That alone makes this one of the best anime that I could recommend to anyone because I guarantee it won't waste your time. Plus, you gotta give some love to Prince Boji because this little dude deserves more attention than a lot of these other shonen protagonists. What do you think of this review of Ranking of Kings? I'd love to hear all your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I will see you all next time.